Hi, good afternoon, and thanks for tuning in to SBAM's Small Business Briefing. I'm Sarah Miller, Vice President of Operations. My co-host Brian Kelly is out of the office today, but we are joined by our familiar face, Kelli Saunders. Kelli, welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks for having me back, Sarah. Kelli Saunders, Vice President of Policy and Engagement here at SBAM. And then we were just talking about it's been a while since I've been on the show. So I think we have a pretty good lineup of interesting things that are happening in and around Michigan today.
We do, and I'm glad you're back today. Let's kick off the show with an announcement from the one of the governor's departments last week. This is called My Leap, and the announcement is on a program that we here at SBM support called TriShare. So, Kelli, can you give us a little background on the program and let us know what happened in this announcement?
Yes, so one of our key priority areas in policy has actually become childcare. Not only do we have many providers that are members of ours, but we know that childcare is essential for employers and employees to lean on in order to retain and attract talent. And so that's been kind of one of our centerpieces over the years. We know that the pandemic showed us that we had a lot of childcare shortages. And in general, the childcare industry can be really hard to support in the form of wages, and then also parents, families being able to support sending their kids to facilities or to home daycare centers that they choose. So, a couple of years back, there was a program that was developed in the legislature called TriShare, and it was a concept designed around the employer and the employee and the state of Michigan sharing the costs of a childcare bill, essentially. So a third, a third, and a third across those three individuals paying for the respective childcare. And so it was started and launched as a pilot within three different regions of the state. And it has expanded over the years to cover all throughout Michigan, every county. There is some sort of hub, as they call it, that administers this program throughout Michigan. And so it's actually become a national model. It was a bipartisan endeavor that was created across party lines and has been quite popular not only in Michigan, but also states look to Michigan to replicate the program. And so we've been one that has championed this. We really believe in all childcare solutions. We know it's not going to take just one thing, but many things in order for parents, kids, and employers and employees to find the right fit for these children and for their workforce. And so last week, MyLeap, which is the Michigan Department of Lifelong Education Advancement and Potential, it's quite a mouthful, announced that they were moving the federal poverty limit, which was 325% to 400% for families to be able to apply for these supports. Now, what does that come out to in the wash as far as an actual income for a household? It does normally $128,600 for a family of four. And so we would really encourage people to look into this program, whether you're an employee that could bring this to your employer for something to consider, or if you're an employer that is really trying to find ways to support your employees in the childcare space because we know how expensive it can be. Please do check into the My Try Share program. I think we can even drop a link here if we possible, Sarah, in order to share that program. But we were thrilled to see the expansion. We will continue to support this program. A few stats on it before we go to the next topic. There are more than 250 Michigan employers that are currently participate in the My Try Share program, serving over 800 families and nearly 1,000 children statewide. This results in a total family savings overall of $8.6 million dollars in childcare costs. And expanding that eligibility is just going to make it even more sound. So, congratulations to MyLeap and being able to expand this program. And we can't wait to find out some more facts as it moves forward. And we would encourage you to check out the program if it is of interest to you.
All right, thanks for that update, Kelli. I did share the link here on Zoom and on Facebook too. All right, let's stay with some other department news. Last week, there was a hearing in the legislature on unemployment, so please fill us in.
Yeah, this is a want story and kind of an I told you so story. One that SBAM, can reflect back on and say, we thought this might be a possibility. So many of you know that we've been a part of a modernization work group with the Unemployment Insurance Agency. It was a group that was put together for employers, employee advocates, unions, when Director Julia Dale was leading the UIA. She has since left to pursue another endeavor, and there is a new director on board that we are getting to know. But there was an effort a few years ago after we know that the trust fund was ravaged during the pandemic with fraud. And so there was an acknowledgement that the system that was being used was not capable of being able to, one, root out fraud, help people get back on their feet in the form of, finding new work, and also for employers to be able to navigate the system, which is very erroneous and tedious at the moment. And so there was an endeavor to essentially rework into a new system. They hired a new company to come in and start to make that transition, and it was a $78 million contract. And what was uncovered last week in this hearing is that they are delayed, first of all, and second, it is $20 million over budget. And so, if you recall last year, and the rates have not hit our employers, is that the legislature went through an exercise where they increased UIA benefits, which we were adamantly opposed to. And our number one reason for not going through the legislature with an increase in benefits and in the weekly amount was because this new system need to be set in place and be functional and get feedback from employers to make sure that this was a good system. So fast forward, we're learning that this project is $20 million over budget. It was supposed to be completed in September of 2024, and now will not be completed until December of 2025, and it's not even in full force to see if it's working functionally. There were in those hearings an admittance by the state that there was not good oversight in making sure that things were running on track. And then there was also from the company that was brought on board in order to implement this new system, challenges in the technology that they thought would be easier to implement than they have been. So when SBAM looks back and says, I told you so, we now have increased benefits and we have a system that is not up running and functional, and they're running the old system that has a lot of issues. So we will continue to be a part of the conversation in making sure that the UIA is held accountable, that we are making sure that the contract is set in place, giving feedback. Unfortunately for our members, our employers that are essentially the ones that pay into that trust fund to make sure that that money is being, allocated in the appropriate use, we have another issue that we have to essentially face with this contract being delayed, and more money that we all pay for the system to be implemented that is not working on the time frame that it was set up to be put in place. So to say that we are disappointed would be fair, but we will still continue to be a part of the conversation, try to find ways to share experiences on behalf of our members and keep our finger on the pulse on what's going on here. But we are hopeful that the hearing that was held last week in the House does keep everyone on track now in order to get the system up and running. Transparency is obviously very important, and this system is very important. And so we will keep you updated as things move forward. But this is a true SBM I told you so moment.
All right. Well, thanks for that update, Kelly, even if it wasn't great news. We often cover Election Watch 2026 on the briefing. We have a little bit of a different spin today. There's going to be something on the ballot in 2026 that we haven't talked about yet, but that our viewers really do need to know about. So, Kelly, can you give us a little bit of a preview here?
It's kind of fun to say. It's called a con. And when we come to 2026, this is not something we talk about often. It's something that happens every 16 years. And so we thought we'd highlight it here today, the first of two ballot proposals that we're going to discuss. So Michigan voters in November of 2026 will decide whether to convene the state's first constitutional convention since the 1960s. And the question will appear as Proposal 1 on your ballot under a provision that is in the current Constitution that gives voters the option every 16 years. So, Michigan voters have actually rejected calls for a constitutional convention rewrites since I'm sorry, in 1978, 1994, and 2010. So next year's proposal already has some interesting banter going back and forth. The speaker actually last week kind of opened up to say maybe it would be good to have one, which is interesting coming from him since he's one of the most prominent voices in Lansing right now. But Michigan voters have approved individual amendments to the current constitution by ballot proposal, which lawmakers cannot unilaterally revise, even if there are acknowledged flaws. So, in the 62 years since the current constitution was ratified in 1963, voters have approved 39 of 85 amendments put on the ballot through petition drives or legislative action. 7 of those amendments came between 2018 and 2022, and nearly all of them included measures that enshrined abortion rights, no reason absentee voting, and then our favorite that we talk about all the time, the Independent Redistricting Commission, which has been a smashing failure. So, the current constitution also requires a high threshold, which is a 3/4 majority support in both chambers of the legislature for lawmakers to amend initiated legislation approved at the ballot, including a 2018 measure that included legalizing recreational marijuana. So, how does it work? Is the question, which this is fascinating to me. It takes 3 elections to give Michigan a new constitution. One to hold a convention, the second to elect the delegates that would do the revising, and a third for Michigan voters to decide whether to adopt the changes. So if voters do approve a constitutional convention in 2026, the delegate election would happen within the following 6 months. Representation would mirror the state legislature, 1 delegate for every House and Senate district, so 148 in total. And then those constitutional delegates would then convene for a convention and work without a deadline on revisions. They would simply offer 1 or more amendments to the existing constitution, or they could start over from scratch and rewrite the whole constitution. It's part of me, like my history nerd, like I start to have heart palpitations when we talk about these things. But then, after all the deliberations and revisions, voters would then vote on whether to adopt the new proposed constitution without a majority in favor of the changes. All their work would be tossed with another shot at revisions in 2042. So, think about it. We could go through all those steps, and amendments could be proposed to the voting public, and they could defeat all of them, and it would have been a waste. And guess what? You're going to pay for this. We're all going to pay for this if we have a rewrite of our Constitution. So history has not been in favor of a rewrite. Michigan is one of 14 states that have a periodic referendum. And so we're just putting this on your radar because it is quite fascinating. If you're a history nerd like I am, just seeing these things pop up and the fact that we vote on it every 16 years, the time has arrived. So we hope that you found this to be interesting. But the next ballot proposal that we are going to talk about is a little bit more concerning. And so we have invited back my trusty sidekick, Jacob Manning, to talk about this ballot initiative. So, Jacob, why don't you reintroduce yourself to our viewership and tell us about the next ballot proposal that we are a little bit terrified of in the moment?
Yeah, thank you, Kelly, and thank you for inviting me to come back onto the briefing. Again, my name is Jacob Manning. I'm the grassroots coordinator and policy advisor for the Small Business Association of Michigan. It's me and Kelly who really make up our advocacy team here in Lansing, really advocating on behalf of small business owners every day in the work that we do with the Michigan legislature. So, as Kelly mentioned, there has been some news stories surfacing over the last couple of weeks, some buzz around Lansing around a prospective proposed ballot initiative. So there is what seems like a collection of maybe about 15 to 20 different community-based education advocacy groups who are working together, likely with some out-of-state funding to push this ballot initiative that they're calling Invest in My Kids. MI is the spelling of my. And what this proposal would essentially do is it would change Michigan's individual income tax rate. And the way that they've kind of built this is that they're saying that this is an increase. They call it a surcharge that would apply to people filing their individual income tax who are for earnings over $500,000 if you're a joint filer, if you're a single filer, if you're a joint filer, the threshold is $1 million. And the surcharge is a 5% surcharge. So the current individual income tax rate in Michigan is 4.25%. The 5% would be on top of that 4.25% for all money earned over that threshold. So it would bring the top level income tax rate all the way up to 9.25%. So more than double where it's at now. So quite high. And the way that this has kind of been pushed by the advocates who are proposing it is that they're targeting the 1%, the state's highest earners, and they're hoping to raise an additional 1.7 billion annually, which would be designated specifically to go towards Michigan's K-12 system. The problem with that for us is that a majority of Michigan small businesses are organized as pass-through entities, and their primary business tax is the individual income tax. So revenues are counted as income, even when the owner of the business isn't necessarily taking home $500,000 plus per year. They could fall into that category because the revenues are counted towards that threshold. And so really what we would be concerned about is the chilling effect that this would have on small businesses. Most of the time, net income of the business it has to stay in the business to go towards growth, equipment, benefit cost increases, and other obligations. And this tax increase isn't just for the state's highest earners, the 1%, as it's been branded, but it's really a penalty on small businesses who are going to have their capacity decreased quite a bit by these increased taxes. And so one of the other reasons we're concerned is that the targets of this ballot initiative are people that have the freedom to relocate and to change their residence. Michigan small business owners are invested and integrated in the state. They don't always have that freedom. It's not easy to just pick up and leave. So where are we at with this ballot proposal? Right now, there's a draft that is floating around. It seems like this draft will be presented to the State Board of Canvassers either this month or next month. And then essentially these organizations would have to gather signatures. I think it's about 450,000 signatures, and they're hoping to appear on the 2026 ballot. An additional, excuse me, a similar ballot initiative was proposed and actually passed in Massachusetts a couple of years ago. It was in 2022. It was Massachusetts question one. It passed 52% to 47%. And so now that state is dealing with an additional 4% surcharge. Ours would be even higher, an additional 5% surcharge. So definitely something that we're going to be keeping an eye on over the next couple of weeks and months as we approach the 2026 election, something that we're going to be pushing pretty strongly against. But it's a different sort of push. It's not a push with the legislature. It's more of a push with the public. So it's going to be a different tactic that we have to take, but certainly something that we would not like to see enshrined into the state constitution. So now, Kelly, let's pivot to what's going on in Lansing as far as the budget. June is typically budget season in Lansing, and we're watching quite a few items here at SBAM during negotiations. The governor released her executive budget recommendation, and she recommended additional funding on a program that we are administering through our through the SBAM Foundation, the Small Business Support Hub grant. I'm going to share my screen here. Would you mind talking a little bit about
Yeah.
the Small Business Support Hub grant?
And I do want to add what Jacob was just talking about on that ballot initiative that we are going to be watching like a hawk. It's really important to start setting the narrative now how harmful this would be, because there's going to be a lot of things that sound good about it, but the details are what matter. And a lot of times with these ballot initiatives, what we've experienced, and this is what we got with the Earned Sick Time Act, is that it all sounds good, but once you actually get into the details, we know how harmful it is. And look at what we had to deal with the Earned Sick Time Act. Unfortunately, Michigan has become a place where there are national models set. We ended up with the Earned Sick Time Act because people from New York and California tried it, and then we got an even more advanced version of the Earned Sick Time Act that needed to be fixed. You heard Jacob just mention Massachusetts. They took a step there with the 4%, whatever he just mentioned, and now they're going to try 5% in Michigan. We really have to start to put our foot down here in Michigan that we are not the state in order to go the extra mile on when it comes to these things, specifically when it impacts you. So we bring you this information to start putting your foot down now because we're starting to see a trend. It's very easy to start to get things on the ballot here in Michigan, and that is a problem. So going into the budget, yes, we are very supportive of the Small Business Support Hub grants. Our foundation has done a stellar job statewide in order to provide grants to small business owners in order to help them advance their respective business. And so the governor did put on the table $10 million to continue that program. And so that the money right now that is being allocated, and Sarah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that will end actually the end of next year, correct? In 2026. She's giving me a head nod. And so what we want to do is see that money continue to advance in order to support small businesses across Michigan. We actually think the governor's $10 million recommendation is a little bit low. We think 25 million is probably more in line with what is needed in order to make sure that money is spread out throughout Michigan in a way that does truly make an impact. Right now, there is obviously many hubs across Michigan. We are one of the only statewide hubs, and so we are going to see those pared back. We would like to continue to be a statewide hub in the future because we have really truly been able to see the impacts in a very positive light for members and future members of ours that have been able to take advantage of it.
All right, thank you, Kelly. The next item on our budget watch list is the Center for Social Enterprise Development. What can you tell us there?
Yeah, so this is a new concept that was created again in line with our foundation activities in combination with a member organization of ours called Encompass Michigan. And the whole purpose of this is to set up the Center for Social Enterprise Development that helps companies that have a social mission set up the ability to employ people that have disabilities and are can tend to be chronically unemployed or they've never had the chance to be employed. And so Encompass Michigan is a wonderful partner of ours. They have a lot of great expertise in this area and helping get this set up. We were able to secure a $1 million appropriation last year in order to get the work set up, and that will start later this year. And then this will be what we call a kind of a 3 to 5 year upstart in order to see the impacts of this allocation and in this investment. And so we will be asking for another $1 million allocation through the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity to continue this good work. We have a lot of members in that are doing this work right now. And we know that there are more that want to do the same kind of work. And so we're excited in order to partner with the legislature to try and get this allocation to keep this moving. And then, Jacob, I think we're going to pivot to one of our favorite topics for our tourism friends in our membership, and that's Pure Michigan. What are we advocating for with Pure Michigan?
Yeah, so I'm sure anybody who's watching this, or most people watching this, are familiar with the Michigan's iconic Pure Michigan campaign. This has been, at this point, it's been about 15 years. This has been really the nation's premier tourism campaign, really showcasing the state of Michigan's natural beauty and trying to drive tourism to a state that's very dependent on tourism. We don't have a lot of through traffic given our station on the peninsula, and so driving people to our state for the express purpose of visiting for tourism is very important, particularly for our northern Michigan folks who rely on the busy season in the summer to kind of make their businesses viable. So we've been longtime advocates for the Pure Michigan campaign. We saw it fall out of favor a little bit a couple of years ago as there was some desire to go with a different direction. We've always preferred the Pure Michigan campaign just as it's a proven brand. It's been proven to be successful for Michigan. We want to stick with sort of a nonpartisan, we appreciate the way that it showcases our state and it's our state's natural beauty and think that it's a proven winner. And so we want to see funding continue for that program. Last year's budget was particularly high given some of the one-time federal funding that lawmakers were able to pull down for the Pure Michigan campaign. So they were able to achieve $40 million last year. Probably won't be as high this year given that one-time federal funding won't be there. But we would still like to see it be well sustained and their organizations to be able to be sustained to continue to drive tourism to our great state.
There are two workforce programs specifically that we've been heavily involved in the past, and those two are Reconnect and Going Pro. So, Jacob, why don't you cover both of those as they are kind of hallmark programs that we really do find a lot of value in?
Yeah, so in our conversations with our members and what the primary issues are that small business owners are facing, we hear time and time again how the workforce shortage issues and the shortage of skilled labor has really been a hindrance to a lot of businesses' ability to grow. So we have found ourselves supporting these two programs, the Michigan Reconnect program and the Going Pro program, as ways for employees and for workers to upskill so that they can grow into roles and fulfill these positions that are open at these businesses. The Michigan Reconnect program in particular is a program that provides scholarships to students who are 25 and older. It allows them to go back to college to a community college to complete an associate's degree or an equivalent skill-based certificate. We know that Michigan is currently last in post-secondary learning after high school. We know that the state's been pushing to get to this 60 by 30, 60% 60% skill certificate or college degree by 2030, excuse me. And this is going to be a major piece of that. So we're big time supporters of the Michigan Reconnect program to try to achieve that goal. The other one that we are longtime supporters of is the Going Pro Talent Fund, which is a program that provides competitive grants where employers are able to pull down this funding to send their employees to different skill classes, and it really rewards employers for retaining their employees and helps improve the employees who are being brought in as new employees, and it helps businesses allows them more capacity to fill their needs in their businesses. And so we've seen this program really be utilized by tens of thousands of businesses at this point, has really helped to upskill the workforce. So we're longtime supporters of that, and we'll continue to support that in the budget going forward. Now, Kelly, I think we have one more item here, and this is actually the favorite topic of the governor. It is roads. Can you explain what is going on lately and how this is all going to shake out?
Well, Jacob, you did say, earlier, June is budget season, and I think characteristically in the past that has been true. There's always been a push to get and this is from the Snyder administration years even, and the governor Governor Whitmer has really kept up with it. There's been, this hustle to get the budget done before July because schools really need to know what funding they're going to have in order to move forward. And so it has admittedly been a late start in getting the budget moving in the House, in the Senate, and with the governor. And so it's no secret that obviously the Speaker and the Senate Majority Leader have been at odds ever since Speaker Hall took over the House chamber. She did sue him, and so there's been obviously some bad blood. There was a media story this past week that the governor did bring the Speaker and the Senate Majority Leader together to talk about, a road forward, no pun intended, with the roads plan. And so there has been a general good conversation about trying to get a roads deal done separate from the budget. But there will have to be kind of, again, another pun, pedal to the metal here when it comes to getting all these things done, because normal budget negotiations, targets, hearings, passing would be happening right now. And while the Senate has passed its own budget that was way over budget from the revenue release from the House and the Senate, there kind of has to be going back to the drawing board, and the House has to get started. And so I have no doubt in my mind that those conversations are happening within the House chamber. The Senate kind of has to go back. The governor's kind of going to be this intermediary essentially between the House and the Senate in order to get things done. But will a roads plan get done? I don't know. I think that there's a desire to get it done, but it's going to be really difficult to do that alongside a budget that really needs to get passed. I'm also guessing that probably the budget will not be done by July 1st. We're probably going into July when it comes to getting it done. I think we all wanted to be hopeful that it would be. And so we're really going to be watching what is the tone and tenor of the three, leaders, the governor, the speaker, and the Senate Majority Leader, to see what happens next. But all that to be said, it seems like the conversation started well this past week, and we will hope that they can work together in order for our state to move forward, specifically with a budget for the schools, and then fixing, our roads, even though construction is abundant these days. So, Sarah, I'll kick it back to you to kind of close out the show. We do have a very important event next week that we need to tell people about. So let's do that before we say goodbye.
We sure do, Kelly. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Jacob, for joining me today on the show. And if you have not yet registered for next week's annual meeting, it's June 17th. We'll be at Eagle Eye Golf Club and Banquet Center in East Lansing, Bath. It's right on the border there. And we're going to have an amazing keynote speaker, Coach Greg Campy. He is the men's head basketball coach at Oakland University. We had a chance to connect with him last week, and I think it's going to be a stellar conversation with him. So sbam.org/annual meeting will give you all the details. You can still register for the next couple of days, and we hope to see you there. But if not, we'll definitely see you next week, Monday at 3 o'clock. Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.